We're coming up to the time of year that Rohatsu Sesshin happens. Traditionally an 8-day retreat that includes, where possible, the 8th of December, which we celebrate as Buddha's Enlightenment Day. And different sanghas all around the world have retreats during this time. But we're going to have our retreat in January just because of that was the only time that we could schedule. And I wanted to talk about one of the reasons that Sesshin is so incredibly valuable. Oh, good. The other Scott got my message. Because we listen to Dharma talks and we read Dharma books and we contemplate various concepts, but absolutely the most important thing is that we realize it in our own bodies. We really, really need to realize the teachings in our own bodies so that there's something that we can't forget. We fully get it in every fiber of our body. And the place that tends to happen is Sesshin. Not exclusively so, but, for many practitioners, Sesshin is the time when we're sitting for days and days and days with other people, with all the skillful supports and traditions to help us be very mindful, very attentive. It's during those sessions that, having heard all the Dharma talks and done our daily zazen and all of those things, we can sit there and a quality of a clarity starts to form. And if we're fortunate, the accident of waking up to the teachings occurs. And it happens mostly in Sesshin for people. The teachings become so much more powerful when you fully realize it for yourself. And the coin really drops for you. Then we don't have to go through a kind of laborious reminding ourselves process over and over. We don't have to do that. We don't have to remind ourselves to be kind. We don't have to remind ourselves that everything's interconnected, or that there's no independent self, or that the here and now is where it's all at. We don't need to remind ourselves of that. We just know it in our bodies. So Sesshin is really very, very valuable. And the other place actually that people often have these kinds of insights is later in life, or not always later, but sometimes when people get like a terminal diagnosis, or when they have something extremely traumatic happen to them. Sometimes those two things, realizing, truly that your mortality and that your time is short, or losing someone you really love, or having something that kind of shakes up your habitual way of viewing the world, sometimes those things can also create conditions for people to wake up. But it would be much better not to have to wait for those things to happen, It's sometimes that maybe is the only way for people. But it's so much better for us to wake up through our own intentional effort. And this morning in the koan class, Rain used a really interesting term. She talked about the muscularity of zazen. I thought that was really lovely. There's a certain kind of muscularity. We have to make a kind of effort that you can do in Sesshin, this effort to shed habitual mind patterns, to just to practice coming into the purity of the present moment. It's the absolute purity of hearing, of seeing, with nothing else added. That takes a kind of muscularity. It takes an effort to not tip towards the mental habits. Our mental habits are so strong. We tip towards them so easily, unconsciously. We just do it. So it takes a kind of an effort to move our minds away from that mental habit of adding concepts, adding language, thinking of ourselves as existing separately from the things that our eyes are seeing. It takes an effort to just keep coming back with a kind of faith that there's something valuable about coming back to the total simplicity of the moment. This complete simplicity of just seeing the carpet in front of you, hearing the bird outside, just the simplicity of that, and to cultivate faith that it's worth trying to just trust in the simplicity of the pure moment. And when we can do that in sesshin, we get this real opportunity over and over and over, because we're less distracted by all the activities of life. So we can just really put our mental effort into just let that go, just let that go. Come back, come back. Just this breath. And often we talk about awakening and realization as a sort of a singular moment. But often I think for people there is a very strong breakthrough moment that they have, but still then after there can be more awakenings, more subtle realizations that happen over time. And I like the image of fruit ripening on the vine. If you think of a piece of fruit hanging on a vine or on a tree, I like to think of a mango on a mango tree, because mangoes are just so kind of wonderful, that we're like the mango. And our daily zazen and our daily contemplations, our studies, our sangha relationships, our precepts are all the sun and the nutrients of the tree, ripening us, ripening us, ripening us, day after day after day. And then suddenly, plop, we fall. All of a sudden, it's always quick, like mango doesn't fall in slow motion. Suddenly, it just drops. That's the embodied realization. The embodied realization, when we're ripe enough, the fruit just drops. So that, the fruit dropping often happens during sesshin. And then another thing that I like to imagine too, with the fruit drops, breaks open on the fertile ground, and then that's our continuing practice, is the growth that comes from the seeds of that fruit. The fruit falls and the seeds take root and they grow. And that's our life practice. So trusting that, sitting in zazen, hour after hour, day after day, bringing the mind back to the present moment. Just bringing it back, that this is how we ripen. And the fruit will drop. If we do that practice, the fruit will drop. It's the way practice works. If we don't practice diligently, the fruit might, if we're just very fortunate, might just still drop, but it's much less likely to. We have to practice with muscularity, with intentionality. this kind of theme is taken up by Tangen Harada Roshi in the book Throw Yourself into the House of Buddha. I'll read the chapter, it's quite short, called The Buddha Way. Even while living lost in ignorance, there remains hidden in the belly of life itself, in your belly, the one who cannot help but seek to know true nature. Don't forget this one who never lets you forget. This true one is always close by, urging you on, calling upon you to open your eyes. This one prompts you towards a way of being that is genuine, urging you to walk the Buddha way. The genuine seeks to awaken to the genuine. There are people who say that it is greedy or wrong to desire the realization of our inherent nature. They say that Shakyamuni Buddha has awakened for us and that that is enough, or that our state of mind is not important as long as we physically sit zazen, so there is no need for realization. Those beliefs make the Buddha's teaching small and insignificant. The passionate desire to know true nature is inherent in all human beings. It is life's very working. So if you desire to awaken, please never think that it is wrong. I will, without fail, awaken to true nature. With this mindset, we walk the Buddha path. The belief that you cannot attain awakening is a refusal to fulfill the reason for being alive, to repay your gratitude. If you do not practice, you will not awaken to reality, to your own very reality. No one can do it for you. No one can see into truth for you. It is your world, solely your world. Do you want to continue to live in delusion? If you spend this lifetime only seeking pleasure, singing and dancing, drinking and making merry, when the end comes, we will know that we didn't resolve this one important matter. It is necessary to clearly resolve and determine to wake up to original life, your true nature. In our temple each morning, we chant the lineage of Buddhas and great teachers who guide us in our practice. Thanks to their great vow, to the great noble intention of each and every one of them, and thanks to their diligent practice, each one was able to hit the mark, to attain the way. Each of them received the teaching and directly experienced this same truth, just as water is poured directly from one cup to another. Everyone is able to do the same. No one is left out. Freedom is our essence. If the Dharma weren't universal, what would be the value in it? If the Dharma were only for the chosen few, where would be the value in pursuing it? If the Dharma could be obtained and lost, I would not be here urging you to deepen your faith beyond all doubt and to let go of body and mind. I would not be here begging you to give it your all. The Dharma is absolute, perfect, all-pervading, all-inclusive, all-embracing. Liberation is yours from the beginning. We are altogether in essence free. All being abides in the radiance of Buddha nature. All being is the radiant light of Buddha. Together with all beings, sentient or insentient, with grasses and trees, together with the great earth, I attain the Buddha way, uttered Shakyamuni Buddha. With his great enlightenment, Shakyamuni, the world-honored one, attained perfect liberation. He came to life, to true life, to liberation, which is our birthright, our essence. Yet how easily we doubt, how quickly we forget. I do not know if I have what it takes to awaken. Maybe I am not ready. Maybe I can't do it. Those doubts are utterly unfounded. This one truth is just as true for you as it is for all the Buddhas. In the Buddha way, in reality, there are no exceptions. Each of you now receiving these words is blessed with this sacred reality. It might sound even too good to be true to you. How can it be that I am so blessed that I don't even feel good about myself? I could repeat it for you 1,000,000 more times, and I would still not even begin to express the absolute perfection with which we are blessed. Because of upside-down, false perceptions, we fail to see this inherent Buddha nature. We are just looking off at the play of our discriminating mind, and that is taken to be the host. For once, realize the true host. Become one with who you really are, and all is well. What a shame for you not to awaken to this wonder, not to prostrate yourself before it, before everything in the universe, not to come to appreciate, to celebrate real life. For that we are doing our practice. We start with what we have got to do right here, right now. The aim is to come to awaken, to know yourself, to know what life really is about. And this one-way path is the universal way, which includes all beings. It is not only for our own small liberation, it is for the liberation of all beings. We start out with this as our aim. So I like this kind of vigorous encouragement to trust that we can each awaken, but that we have to put in the work. And the work is not to add something to ourselves. There's not anything wrong with us. We need to work hard to get better. It's not that kind of work. It's work to let go of. It's work to shed. It's a different kind of effort because we are already perfect Buddhas. And we can hear that over and over and over. And this is the point of this talk. You can hear that over and over and over. And that we're all interconnected. And that there is no beginning and no end. No birth, no death. But those words only take us so far. We have to sit and have the fruit drop, the coin drop, where we suddenly go, oh my God, there's no self, or something like that. We have to have that these sudden realizations are incredibly simple. It's not a complex thought that people have when they wake up. It's not some really complicated thing. It's so simple. This is why people often laugh a lot when they wake up. It's so simple. And yet all of this time, we haven't been able to see it. I'm just thinking about how sometimes dogs and cats, when you sit them on your lap, they can't see the computer screen. Like their eyes look at everything except the computer screen. Like it's right there. It's super bright. There's all this activity happening on it. And their heads are just like bobbing about, looking all over the place, and they can't see the screen. Some cats and dogs can, but a lot can't. We're a little bit like that. Here and now is right in front of our eyes with no language attached to it. And yet we can't seem to see it. Our eyes and our ears and our bodies are just sort of bobbing about, somehow missing. So sesshin, we can really cultivate that attention. Pure simplicity of the moment. Some of the ways that people express that experience is this sudden sense of no separate self. After all the years of self-concern, all the years of worrying about oneself, sometimes people's experience in that their realization is this dropping off completely of self-identification. and there's a huge weight, people feel this incredible weight lifted off them, and they laugh and skip about. Sometimes people do that in sesshin. They get up for kinhin and they're just so filled with joy that they can't help but skip around the zendo when they're meant to be slowly doing kinhin. That sometimes happens. Or another experience is this real sense of contain, like Walt Whitman says, we contain multitudes. A sudden realization of the whole universe and I, completely the same. So a great sense of abundance, of intimacy with everything. Oh my God, the universe and I are one. All the plants and animals, all the stars, the clouds, the rocks, the water, all the people. It's all me. There's another way. Of course, the language doesn't capture it, but we use language anyway. But these can be inspirational images that can encourage us to do zazen. We don't sit in zazen thinking like, oh, I contain multitudes. It's not terribly helpful to think like that, but we can be inspired by that and just keep coming back to the breath. Keep coming back to just the image in front of our eyes. Or if we're practicing a sort of a pure shikantaza, this sense of knowing that we are perfect just as we are, and then forgetting all about that and just sitting there with no object of concentration, just pure sitting. Very difficult practice. That's where the muscularity is required, to sit with no object of focus and just purely sit in the knowledge that we are Buddha and nothing needs to be added. Just to sit like that. Another thing that sometimes happens as a kind of opening up, cracking point for people is really seeing the absolute perfection of just now. Here and now is all that exists. Past and future are just ideas. Here and now is it. It's another way in which people, the universe kind of cracks open for people, as they deeply feel, deeply in their whole body, a sense of the power of just this here and now. And another is hearing a sound or seeing an image with no language and experiencing that, experiencing just pure sound, just an image with no language attached. That can be another way in which people suddenly realize all the teachings. They all crash in together at once. They all crash in, and these are just different windows. But all of this, to say all of this, is just an encouragement to trust in the power of zazen and of sesshin and of sangha, because the thing about sesshin is you're doing it with the community. We do it with others. It's very powerful to do it with others. There's more power in sitting with the community. Well, I don't know if this is true, but I feel like this is my experience, is sitting with sangha is more powerful than sitting alone. I don't know if that's something that you really could generalize, but it's certainly my experience. And I think there's something about that too, that it's a physical acknowledgement of the fact that we are totally interdependent with each other. But solitary retreats are great too. I mean, I've done a solitary retreat and loved it very much. A solitary retreat, of course, isn't really solitary, because there's no such thing really. You're still with all the ancestors. You're still with your environment around you. All the plants and animals, the building, the food, the heating. And well, maybe I'll save this for a talk next week. I've been contemplating another thing. But I think it could be a whole talk. If I talk about it now, it'll rush it too much. But I'll share the thought, which is something that kind of really impacted me a number of years ago, but I've been thinking about a lot more recently. That every object in our environment alters our mood, that everything is mood altering. We often think of mood altering things as specific things like drugs or coffee or movies. We think of specific things as mood altering, but everything is mood altering. And when we really contemplate that deeply, we realize that our mind is 100% dependent on everything for its existence. And then the sense of mind being separate from everything starts to fall apart. So I'll save that as a topic, maybe for next week. So maybe we could say overall that the theme of just this talk really is to realize directly, and that we can realize directly more than once. Hakuin Zenji, I think, said 17 times he had profound awakening experiences. So even if we've had a strong experience, that's no reason to go, I've got it now. There's always more that we can more fully. It's not more things, more fully. We can more fully realize. And practice to our very last breath. All right. Would anyone like to comment or ask anything? Scott Tyler.
Yeah, I was looking at the dates for Sesshin today for Rohatsu, but me and Sarah are just going to sit a little half day sit tomorrow. And I have a little quick story. When I first started practicing, I went to a retreat in Northern California with Edward S.B. Brown, and I was sitting in front of a sliding glass door because it wasn't a Zendo, it was like a retreat center. So there was one glass door overlooking an orchard, and I was doing zazen, and I did see an apple fall off a tree, and it absolutely amazed me because I've never seen one happen. And I looked around like, did you see that? And no one else saw it but me. And so later on during a break, I went and picked up the apple. I took it home and watched it deteriorate over the next 2 weeks. But it was cool to see an apple fall off a tree because I'd never seen one. And I looked around like, did anybody see that? But nobody did. It was strange. Oh, and also, you've been talking about that book. I just received it yesterday, so I'm looking forward to devouring it in the House of Buddha.
Yeah. Well, yeah, seeing an apple fall off the tree or a piece of fruit fall off a tree is kind of rare. And they say that even though everybody can awaken, it is actually rare that people do. So we are a bit like, seeing ourselves or seeing someone else awaken. Meeting someone who has awakened is a bit like seeing a piece of fruit actually fall. Yeah. That's great that you've seen that, because that's a beautiful image to carry for yourself. Yeah. And there, Sarah, well, I'll just add, and sometimes people say, you know, I've heard of a number of people who've awakened in a zendo because of a piece of fruit falling and hitting the roof. You know, if you think about some of the big monasteries have got trees all around them, and a piece of fruit falls and hits the roof. And I think maybe it's just the sound, the purity of that sound, but also maybe knowing this image that we're like a piece of fruit that ripens and falls, that to hear a fruit hit the roof, you could see how that could be a strong encouragement to wake up, a strong moment at which one could wake up. Sarah?
Well, Scott, I want to see you at Rohatsu. I'm going to do all 7 days, so I'm looking for you. The one thing that I like about sesshin too, that I think is also sort of an awakening experience, is how you can go into a sesshin. Maybe you go even somewhere where you don't know anyone, and you're just sitting with people you don't know, and you just sit there with them, you know, I'd say at least 3 days, and after that experience, you just feel so bonded together, just from never even really speaking, just sitting there in the room with these same people. There's something that happens, you know, and I think that's the sign of that awakening, and that we all share that Buddha nature, you know, or ungraspable thing, you know, that we're all part of that. And so I always like sesshin because of how it really bonds us all together that way.
And they've done studies about the kinds of ceremonies that happen in religious communities, and one of the effects that they have is that things like people's heartbeats start to synchronize, and so we are actually sitting and physically we start to synchronize with each other, and I think that on some level deepens that sense of connectedness. It's a shame that we don't have more skillful things like that in modern society. A lot of the time they've been lost for a lot of people. They don't get to experience them. Maybe in certain settings like a music concert or something, there might be a sense of everybody gets a unifying, physiologically unifying experience. But if it doesn't have the wisdom piece added to it, then it doesn't go very far. It's limited in what it can do, but when that's combined with these teachings of kindness and compassion and interconnectedness, then they're really powerful. All right, well, we can chant together. Unify our voices. Beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassable. I vow to become it.